You are awake before the klaxon sounds, but not because you are rested. In Hive Primus, sleep is not something that arrives gently. It is stolen, clawed out of stolen minutes beneath insulation sheeting and rusted vents. You awaken because the pressure gauge above your bunk rattles, because a nearby ventilation fan begins its screaming cycle, because someone several levels up dropped something heavy, and the vibration traveled down the ductwork like a warning. Then comes the klaxon, a deep, synthetic bellow, broadcast across all levels from sub-15 to upper HAB-7. It doesn't ask, it doesn't suggest, it reminds. It is 3:00 shift time. You sit up, slowly. The bunk groans. Your feet find cold floor. A metal surface, dented and pockmarked, once painted with safety stripes, now buried under generations of shoe tread and sweat. You reach for your standard issue shift gear, a jumpsuit that smells like the person who wore it before you, a respirator mask with a cracked lens, and a data brace that barely sinks to the cogitator banks. There is no water this morning. The purifier is in recycle mode. You chew a ration square. Synthetic fiber, mildly flavored with processed grox essence, and try not to think about real food. You saw a picked once, years ago, a real meal. You think it had leaves, but that was up high, far, far above. You file into the corridor. The other workers do the same. No one speaks. There are no greetings. There's only motion. The hallway is narrow, lit by flickering lumen strips, and the glow of static-charged mold growing along the conduit seams. You keep your eyes forward. You pass a sanitation servitor dragging a waste cart. It hums a hymn to the Messiah as it goes, off-key and mechanical. It smells like solvent and ozone. The lift to sub-assembly Sector 9 takes 17 minutes to arrive. By then, the line is 500 people long. A man 3 spaces ahead coughs wetly into a rag. He doesn't look well. You hope he makes it through the shift. If he doesn't, someone will need to fill his slot. Perhaps his child. Perhaps you. The lift arrives with a hiss of failing hydraulics. It shudders as it takes you down. You don't speak. You don't look at the others. You grip the rail and stare at the ceiling, where a faded motivational mural depicts the Emperor raising his hand above a smiling populace. None of those people look like you. The cogitator array bay is already hot when you arrive. Machines exhale dry air from their cores. Dust vibrates in the light of blinking status runes. The supervisor is a man with a vox-scarred voice and 2 bionic eyes. He reads the assignments from a tablet he never seems to charge. Bay 5, patch runoffs. Bay 7, wiring faults. Bay 10, missing unit, double duty. You're Bay 10 today. You do not react. Your station is a cramped cubicle filled with hanging cable coils, sparking junctions and data taps that no longer match their labels. You pull down your mask. The filter is old. You breathe. Anyway, slowly. Always through your nose. You begin the work. Feed wires. Reroute lines. Test voltages. Avoid feedback loops. If your fingers get shocked, you don't show it. That earns reprimands. If your cuts bleed, wipe them on your boot. Never the wall. Time passes differently here. The chronometer reads 8:16 by the time you feel the cramp in your spine. 5 hours gone. No break yet. That comes at 9. 0. If the supervisor remembers. Someone across the aisle drops a spool. It clangs. Oh, loud. Too loud. The supervisor looks up. A servo skull buzzes toward the worker, hovering, scanning. No punishment today, just a warning ping. You resume. You are halfway through a reroute sequence when the alarm blares. Not the work klaxon, a different one. A rising note. Emergency level 2.2. Someone whispers. Spill in pipe. Sector 12. That's far above you. But the lifts will lock anyway. Protocol. For safety. You keep working, because nothing stops the shift. The spill in pipe Sector 12 doesn't affect you directly. Not yet. But the alarms continue to echo, distant and distorted by the layered bulkheads of the Hive. Emergency lights flicker through the grated ceilings, painting your workstation in brief flashes of amber. You pause, just for a moment, to stretch your fingers. Your knuckles ache. Your wrists are speckled with thin, dark burns. Not fresh, not old, but that middle stage of irritation where nerves tingle and skin has stopped bothering to heal fully. The gloves they issue are too thin. More a gesture than protection, but they allow better dexterity. And that's the priority. There are no chairs. You kneel on the grooved floor. It cuts into your knees over time, but a cushion would mark you as soft. And cushions are flammable. Everything flammable must be registered, tagged, and traceable. One infraction and the administratum could assign you to the Flamer Cruise. No one comes back from that. At least, not with their lungs intact. By 9:12, the supervisor finally calls for break rotation. Your second shift, that gives you 12 minutes. You unhook your data brace and step away from the junction terminal. It continues to hum without you, its exposed capacitors glowing gently, like embers under ash. You don't look back. The break room is not a room. It is a space behind a storage cage where exposed pipes hiss and a bench, welded directly to the wall, offers seating for 4. You sit on the floor instead. There are 9 others here already, eating slowly, methodically, like insects with schedules. The light above is out, but no one requests a replacement bulb. Dimness is preferable. It hides the filth, and it feels quieter. Your ration pack for the day contains a nutrient bar, a water bulb, and a resize CT bag. The bar is gray-brown, the flavor somewhere between salted protein paste and sterilized nothingness. You chew it slowly. Let the rhythm of eating ground you. The water bulb tastes faintly of copper. The tea is mostly warm. Someone is whispering nearby. They're talking about someone who died last shift. Electrocution. Sudden. Painless, they say. You don't engage, but you listen. A death on shift means a reassignment. If the report's clean, there might be an opening up hive. Safer wiring. Better air. The kind of dream people have in place of real ones. Your 12 minutes pass. Exactly. You return to your post. No one is monitoring the time. Not visibly, but the expectation hangs heavy, like the weight of the hive itself. Everyone moves with synchronicity not taught, but learned. The rhythm of survival. The beat of existence in a system that does not care if you live. Only that the work continues. You resume the routing patch. A small shock travels up your arm. You don't flinch. The jolt is mild, more a tap than a hit. It tells you the junction is unstable. The insulation is degrading again. You make a note on your scrap ledger. Not for repair. No one will prioritize it, but for you. So that tomorrow, you remember not to trust that side panel. At 11:48, the foreman makes an appearance, different from the supervisor. This one's in a heavier coat, with a Vox unit built into his collar and a las pistol holstered at his hip. The workers straighten. No one salutes. That's not how this works. But they make themselves visible. Alert. Productive. The foreman paces once down the aisle. Looks at no one. Checks a blinking panel. Mutters something into his collar. Then vanishes. You exhale. Quietly. Everyone does. Moments like that pass without words. Around 13:0, the air recycler begins to sputter. A high-pitched whine, accompanied by a new smell. Ozone and oil. You activate your respirator filter. It hums briefly, then settles. You wonder if it will last today. It's your third one this month. That's one more than regulation allows. But the quartermaster hasn't noticed. Or hasn't cared. You've learned not to ask. As the shift wears on, your mind begins to drift. Not far. You cannot afford full distraction, but you let your thoughts slow. You think of upper levels, not the spires, but the mid-hive sectors, the ones with actual windows, with lights that aren't flickering, with food not sealed in synth wrap. But you've never seen them. But sometimes you imagine you have. A man once claimed he'd climbed that high, back in sub-11. He told stories of fresh fruit, of water you could see through, of music piped through the walls. He disappeared 3 cycles later, officially reassigned. Unofficially, no one asks. No one ever asks. The hive is not quiet. It never has been. Even in the lower levels, where light dies early, and the air is thick with reclaimed heat, the sound is constant. You just learn to stop hearing it. The ever-present thrum of power converters, the hiss of vent stacks, the chatter of cogitators, the slow rattle of ducting cables expanding and contracting with thermal shifts. All these become background to the single loudest sound of all. Your own breath, caught in a respirator too old to remember its serial number. You're on your feet again. The afternoon stretch begins with a wiring update. A cog adept from Sector Gamma has revised the schematic. That means the junction you spent 3 hours adjusting this morning must now be reversed and routed through a backup relay that no longer exists. You do not ask why. Whoa. You simply comply. Compliance is survival. The new relay route sends you 3 corridors east, through an older section, unused for standard shifts, but still powered. The walls are a darker gray here. The rust creeps more openly. The lighting is more sporadic, and you move slower, careful not to trip where the floor plating has warped upward. You pass a shrine. It's small. Just a vent alcove partially cleared of grime. Its walls marked with burnt oil in the shape of the aquila. Someone has left a small votive candle, unlit. A crude servo skull drawing has been scratched into the floor beside it, its expression oddly serene. You lower your head as you pass. Not because you believe, but because it's what one does. The relay is there, buried under 3 decades of cabling and a pile of empty ration crates. You spend an hour clearing it, another half hour prying open the casing. Inside, the wiring has melted into a fused tangle. The logic matrix glows a dull orange, as though embarrassed. You begin repairs. You do not expect it to work, but you do the work anyway, because someone, somewhere, will log the status report. And if your name appears without a corresponding task, that's grounds for reconditioning. Or worse, reassignment to exterior sealant teams. You've heard stories about the things that live on the hive's outer skin. At 15:0, the ambient lighting dims again. A scheduled load shed. Power pulled upward for spire use. You switch on your shoulder lamp. The glow is weak, but enough. You continue patching wires. Your hands work without thinking now. Muscle memory, born of 1,000 identical days. A voice echoes down the hall. It's low, raspy, dot, mechanical. You freeze. Another worker. A servitor? You wait. Then the voice fades. You do not investigate. That's rule 1. If something moves in an abandoned sector, and it isn't your direct task, it isn't your business. By 1612, the relay patch is complete. You file a report through the data slate on your wrist. The signal pings weakly, relayed through 3 echo nodes before it confirms receipt. You feel a strange flicker of something close to pride. Then you check the cogitator inbox. There is already a correction order. The relay needs to be rerouted again. A different adept has issued a contradictory schematic. You close your eyes for a moment. Let your head rest against the wall. It's warm from decades of machinery humming behind it. You breathe in. Let the metal tang of the air settle behind your teeth. You rise. Return. Because the shift is not over. At 17:0, your path back to the junction is blocked. A worker team is welding new stabilizer arms into the corridor. No warning was posted. You double back. Take the long route. An extra 12 minutes through a maintenance subduct filled with stagnant heat and the stench of old machine oil. Your boots make soft sucking sounds as you step. You do not slip. Others have. You've seen the scrapes along the edge of the crawl space where a body was dragged. Long ago. Yeah. Perhaps it was a sleeping worker. Perhaps not. Either way, the stain remains. By 18:0, you're back on the main floor. You report your presence to the supervisor. He doesn't look up. Simply waves one hand, lazily, before pointing toward a new junction. A new task. No thanks. No acknowledgement. You are not expected to need it. The new junction isn't on the map. That's not unusual. Schematics in this section haven't been updated in decades. The walls have been rewired so many times by so many hands that the official layouts are little more than hopeful guesses. Some ducts don't lead anywhere. Some pipes loop in on themselves. And some doors, bolted, rusted, sealed with wax and warning tape, are best left unopened. You make your way toward the assigned location. The corridor is narrower here, and the ceiling hangs lower. The air smells faintly of burnt insulation and something older. A tang like spoiled oil and damp iron. You tighten your respirator straps. The fit is still loose. The buckle never quite locks, and the left filter rattles faintly when you breathe. The junction box is embedded in the wall beneath an access stairwell. Someone has carved a series of numbers into the metal around it. Not standard labeling. A worker's personal notation, perhaps. Or something else. You don't ask. You open the casing. Inside is a nest of wires, overlapping colors, outdated insulation. Some clearly cannibalized from other units. It's like untangling a maze made by ghosts. You test a few leads. One sparks. You flinch, but only slightly. The shock is brief. It's just enough to tell you the line is active. Barely. There's no service record. You'll have to guess. You begin rerouting. Time slips. There is no clock visible here. No chrono readout on your slate. Battery drained. As usual. You rely on the rhythm of the hive instead. The throb of machinery. The pitch of sirens. The temperature of the air, which rises steadily as night cycle draws closer. You are not alone in this hall. Other workers pass. Wordless. Some push carts. Some carry tools. One shuffles past with an entire exhaust duct strapped to his back. No one meets your gaze. You don't meet theirs. That is the rhythm. A small group of children walks by. Too young for full shifts, but old enough to carry tools and sweep debris. They don't speak either. One of them wears a rebreather mask fashioned from a soup tin. Another carries a pet, a small rat in a cage. You wonder what it eats. You resume your task. The relay responds. Finally, a green light flickers once, then again. It's not stable, but it's functional. Enough for the load that passes through this junction. At least for today. Tomorrow, it may fail again. But tomorrow is not your problem. You send the update report. It vanishes into the data flow. No confirmation. That means it was probably received. You return the panel cover. Your hands are black with carbon. You wipe them on your thighs. Your coveralls are already stained. Grease, dust, old coolant. The fabric is stiff from months of wear. A seam on your left leg has split open again. You remind yourself to repair it tonight. If the mender thread hasn't run out, you begin the walk back to central maintenance. The hall has changed slightly. Someone has placed a pick slate in one corner, mounted crookedly above a junction box. It plays a looping vid, an Imperial recruitment ad, badly degraded. The colors are wrong. The faces flicker. Oh, but the voice remains clear. Service brings salvation. Glory awaits. You do not stop to watch it. You've seen 1,000 like it. At 1915? Or something close to it. The evening purge begins. You hear it before you see it. The high-pitched whine of cleaning servitors rolling down the upper ducts, spraying vaporized antifungal mist across the work zones. It smells sharp, like synthetic pine and melting plastic. You duck into an alcove and let the cloud pass. You hold your breath. Too much exposure burns the lungs. But not enough brings disciplinary review. You wait for the chemical fog to fade, then step back onto the floor and continue. One more junction, one more inspection, one more signature on the docket. Then maybe the shift will end. You arrive back at central maintenance, just as the overhead vents shift into purge cycle. Tu Yuing. The air pressure changes slightly, pulling a soft draft through the hole that makes the wall-hung banners stir. Not banners in the ceremonial sense, but lengths of fibercloth printed with catechisms and machine prayers, each one stiff with dust and condensation. You pass under them without reading. You've memorized most by now. They change every few weeks, but only in sequence. They loop, like everything else. Inside the maintenance office, the supervisor is reviewing an Auspex slate. He doesn't speak as you approach. He simply tilts the screen so you can see. Your ID code flashes next to a list of completed junctions. Some are marked with red glyphs, indicating discrepancies in voltage readings. You know they're not yours. Probably misreadings. But misreadings have a way of becoming written in fractions. You sign the verification sheet anyway. He nods. No words are exchanged. You leave. That's how these things work. Your shift isn't over, but the physical labor is. The final hour is for decontamination, tool returns, and queuing for transit pods. The sealed trams that take workers back to their hab blocks. You take the long route through Hall 6, past the servo rack charging columns. Rows of maintenance servitors rest there, slumped forward in their cradles, eyes dim, limbs twitching with residual charge. Some are missing parts. A hand, a jaw, an entire torso. Others are newer models, pristine and unmoving. You walk quietly among them. One lifts its head as you pass. Its lips twitch. A tongue of pink, almost human, almost still alive, flickers at the corner of its mouth. You don't look back. You reach the locker corridor. There is no privacy here. Not really. Just lines of small storage boxes, each with a worn designation rune. Yours sticks slightly when you open it. Inside, a roll of patch tape. a bent spanner, and a slip of folded paper. You unfold it. It's a notice from the Hab admin. Ration deductions next week. Fuel costs rising. The signature is mechanical. You place the slip back inside. You remove your outer layer of coveralls and fold them into your bag. You wipe your hands again. No soap, just dry fabric. You splash your face at the corner spout. The water runs brown for 2 seconds before clearing. You count to 5, then stop. That's the safest window. In the tramline queue, you wait alongside dozens of others. You don't speak. No one does. Everyone sways slightly. The day's fatigue is visible in the way bodies shift to ease pressure points, in the way spines curl and heads tilt toward one another without ever touching. Tram arrives at 24. You board. The interior is cold, artificially chilled to preserve its circuits during long cycles. You sit by the wall, hands in your lap. You do not look through the viewport. There is nothing to see. The tram hums forward, gliding along its sealed path. You feel it turn once, then descend. A subtle dip, like falling in slow motion. It passes through a sanitization field. A tingle brushes your scalp. Then a brief static pulse. Everyone blinks at once. It passes. Arrival at your hab block is announced by a chime. 3 low tones, then 1 high. You rise, walk, doors hiss open. You are back where you began. The hab corridor is quiet. Most residents are still at shift, or asleep, or simply gone. Your unit door grinds open. Inside, the air is warmer than you remember. A malfunction, maybe. You'll need to adjust the vent settings again. The lights flicker once, then settle. You lower yourself onto the bunk, remove your boots, and breathe. You lie back on the bunk. The mattress beneath you is thin, not foam, not padding. Just woven plastic mesh over a rust-proof frame. It creaks softly when you shift. The blanket, regulation issue, smells of old coolant and disinfectant. You do not mind. You've come to associate that scent with sleep. Above you, the ceiling pipes groan again. Expansion and contraction. You learn to map the passage of time through the sounds of the walls. 2 clicks from the pressure regulator. Then silence. Then the metallic flutter of the recycler blades spinning down. It's nearly rest cycle. You close your eyes, but only briefly. You need to eat. The nutrient packet is stored on a shelf near the wall. A pale gray square marked with the seal of the local Munitorum division. Inside, another ration bar. A pouch of liquid, synth vegetable broth. A cube of compressed starch with artificial seasoning. You chew slowly. Let the motions anchor you. The taste doesn't matter. Food is energy, not comfort. There is no entertainment feed tonight. The wall slate glows once, then darkens. You tap the corner sensor. Nothing. Bandwidth likely redirected to spire-level consumption again. Or an outage in your block. Either way, silence. You light the dim lumen lamp near your bedside. It's small, battery-powered. A gift from someone, once. You don't remember who. The years blur down here. Friends move sectors. Names fade. Faces become just more bodies in line. You take out the cloth bundle beneath your bed. Inside, a worn servo casing, a cracked screen, and a length of braided wire you've been slowly polishing. Your project. Not for duty, not for inspection. Just something to do with your hands. A makeshift clock, perhaps. Or a crude picked recorder. Maybe neither. You don't work on it every night. Just sometimes, when your fingers aren't too swollen Tonight, you only look at it. Then you fold it away again. Your neighbor thumps on the wall. 2 soft knocks. A signal. They are going to sleep. A courtesy. You respond in kind. Mutual recognition. Minimal intrusion. You've never seen their face. That's how it's supposed to be. You shut off the lamp. The hab darkens to a dull slate gray, lit only by the residual glow from the power conduit above your doorframe. You let your breathing slow. Let your mind drift, but not too far. Down here, dreams can be dangerous. You've heard the whispers. Tikers awakened in their sleep, sanctioned late, taken away, or worse, not sanctioned at all. You keep your thoughts grounded. Think of wires, of circuits, of vents that hum, of metal cooled by time and friction. These are safe thoughts. These are workers' thoughts. You fall asleep with your boots beside your bed and your mask resting on your chest. You'll need them again in 4 hours. The alarm buzzes at 3:45 local. Hive time, not planetary time. Planetary time has no meaning down here. There is no sun to rise, no moon to track. Only the ticking of internal systems, the rotation of duty schedules, and the hiss of steam signaling the start of a new workday. You don't move right away. The mattress is just as hard. The air is just as thick. But those first few seconds before you rise are the closest you'll come to stillness today. You let your lungs expand once. Let your body remember it exists. Then you sit up. The filter mask goes on first. Then the boots. Then the coveralls, still damp from yesterday. You don't bother wiping them. You don't have time. The shift won't wait. Outside, the corridor is busier than usual. Someone's yelling 2 floors up. A maintenance crew moves past carrying a broken vent fan on a cart. One of the workers stumbles. His respirator slips sideways. No one stops to help. They just keep moving. So does he. You queue at the ration dispenser. It sputters when it reads your ident code, then finally dispenses a rehydrated protein cake and a bulb of electrolyte solution. The cake is soft in the middle, almost gelatinous. You eat it while walking. The tram is late today. Not broken, just late. You and 30 others wait in silence. The floor is sticky with old cleaning foam. Someone behind you coughs. Short, sharp, a wet edge to it. They cover their mouth, but you still step forward half a pace. The tram arrives. Inside, the light flickers for several seconds, then stabilizes. You don't sit, not worth the effort. You grip the rail and brace for the turn. The hum of the power lines above vibrates faintly through your arm. The doors open again. You walk. The work assignment board shows new routes today. Entire teams reassigned to Sector 11. A corrosion sweep. Dot. You scan the list. Your name hasn't moved. Still. Junction 14D. Through 14K. Routine. You report to your supervisor. He looks tired. His third eyelid flickers once. A biological quirk from some distant planetary lineage. He doesn't speak, just nods. You nod back. That's enough. Your locker holds a tool roll, a spool of reinforced cabling, and a small flask of machine oil. You check the contents. Everything is there. Everything has to be. If something's missing, the replacement requisition takes 4 standard weeks. You move to your first post. The hallway is darker than usual. You switch on your shoulder lamp. The air smells of damp plastic. Someone's dropped a bolt gun casing here. Old rusted, long since discharged. You pick it up and pocket it. It might trade for something. A thread patch, maybe. Or new gloves. The junction hums gently. You lower to one knee and begin. The junction panel is coated in a thin film of grit. Not dust exactly, but the airborne residue of servitor exhaust and crumbling ferrocrate. You wipe it clear with the sleeve of your coverall. Underneath, the panel pulses faintly with heat. Someone has been here recently. You check the input logs. No entries recorded. No update pings. The last authorized interaction was 2 weeks ago. That's not unusual. The deeper you go in the Hive, the more the paperwork stops matching the reality. You uncoil your cabling. The protective sheath has split along one edge. You'll have to apply sealant before routing it through the outer conduit. You don't mind. The repetition is meditative. You begin to work. The sounds around you are the same as always. Distant footfalls. The faint ticking of pipes adjusting to pressure shifts. The low drone of distant machinery. Somewhere down the hall, a warning chime rings 3 times. Someone's tripped a breaker. You ignore it. The wiring is slow. Several leads have fused at the junction point, and the anchoring brackets have corroded inward, binding them in place. You work with the spanner and pry bar, easing them loose. The bolts shriek faintly as they twist free. Like old metal in pain, you keep your breath steady. You've learned to match your breathing to your hand movements. And turn the tool. Out. Test delete. Repeat. It keeps the panic at bay. The rising sense that this will never end. That there will never be enough light, or time, or air. By the time you finish rerouting, you're sweating through your mask. The filters are clogged again. You make a note on your slate. Filter replacement needed. You'll submit the request tonight, knowing full well it may be ignored. But the note matters. It shows intention. Records keep you safe. Sometimes, you reseal the panel and tag the junction as updated. The supervisor won't check, but the record will. You rise slowly, knees creaking, and collect your tools. A dull ache has settled across your shoulders, the kind that never quite goes away. You rotate your neck. The vertebrae click like dice inside a tin cup. Your next task is 3 levels down. No tram access this time. The lift is flagged for priority tech use, and the servitor override panel has been locked shut. You'll take the stairs. There are 211 of them. You count as you descend. Not because you need to, but because it gives shape to the descent. Numbers have edges. The rest of the Hive does not. The stairwell is dim, the lights flickering from the moisture drawn in by failed sealant strips. A colony of synth mold has taken root in one corner, a faintly luminous smear of green and yellow that pulses when you pass. You avert your eyes. On step 96, you pass a pair of workers holding a broken vent unit. One of them is limping. The other wears a chest tag marked for penal detail. Neither speaks. You nod once. They do not nod back. At the base, a wide corridor opens. This section is quieter. Not abandoned, just slow. The air feels colder here, touched by recirculated chill from the Hive's cryo reserves. You breathe through your mouth. It's easier that way. The task here is simpler. Relay testing, voltage stabilization, visual inspection. You move methodically. You have done this before, and you will do it again. The junction panel is coated in a thin film of grit. Not dust exactly, but the airborne residue of servitor exhaust and crumbling ferrocrate. You wipe it clear with the sleeve of your coverall. Underneath, the panel pulses faintly with heat. Someone has been here recently. You check the input logs. No entries recorded. No update pings. The last authorized interaction was 2 weeks ago. That's not unusual. The deeper you go in the Hive, the more the paperwork stops matching the reality. You uncoil your cabling. The protective sheath has split along one edge. You'll have to apply sealant before routing it through the outer conduit. You don't mind. The repetition is meditative. You begin to work. The sounds around you are the same as always. Distant footfalls, the faint ticking of pipes adjusting to pressure shifts, the low drone of distant machinery. Somewhere down the hall, a warning chime rings 3 times. Someone's tripped a breaker. You ignore it. The wiring is slow. Several leads have fused at the junction point, and the anchoring brackets have corroded inward, binding them in place. You work with the spanner and pry bar, easing them loose. The bolts shriek faintly as they twist free, like old metal in pain. You keep your breath steady. You've learned to match your breathing to your hand movements. Indont. Turn the tool. Out. Test the lead. Repeat. It keeps the panic at bay. The rising sense that this will never end, that there will never be enough light, or time, or air. By the time you finish rerouting, you're sweating through your mask. The filters are clogged again. You make a note on your slate. Filter replacement needed. You'll submit the request tonight, knowing full well it may be ignored. But the note matters. It shows intention. Records keep you safe. Sometimes, you reseal the panel and tag the junction as updated. The supervisor won't check, but the record will. You rise slowly, knees creaking, and collect your tools. A dull ache has settled across your shoulders, the kind that never quite goes away. You rotate your neck. The vertebrae click like dice inside a tin cup. Your next task is 3 levels down. No tram access this time. The lift is flagged for priority tech use, and the servitor override panel has been locked shut. You will take the stairs. There are 211 of them. You count as you descend, not because you need to, but because it gives shape to the descent. Numbers have edges. The rest of the Hive does not. The stairwell is dim, the lights flickering from the moisture drawn in by failed sealant strips. A colony of synth mold has taken root in one corner, a faintly luminous smear of green and yellow that pulses when you pass. You avert your eyes. On step 96, you pass a pair of workers holding a broken vent unit. One of them is limping. The other wears a chest tag marked for penal detail. Neither speaks. You nod once. They do not nod back. At the base, a wide corridor opens. This section is quieter. Not abandoned. Just slow. The air feels colder here, touched by recirculated chill from the Hive's cryo reserves. You breathe through your mouth. It's easier that way. The task here is simpler. Relay testing, voltage stabilization, visual inspection. You move methodically. You have done this before, and you will do it again. You rise again when your knees stop pulsing. Not because you've rested enough. You haven't. But because the window for delay is small, too long between log junctions and the system flags you for inconsistency. You've seen what happens to inconsistent workers. Usually a disciplinary reroute. Sometimes a reassignment. You've never asked where. You make your way to the next point. The corridor narrows again, pinched between an outflow pipe and a decommissioned vent shaft. The lighting here is green-tinted, a chemical film on the lumen housings. It casts everything in an underwater hue. Your shadow stretches across the floor like a smear. At the far end of the hall, a set of emergency stairs has collapsed inward, likely a structural quake months ago. No repairs have been ordered, no detour signs posted. It simply remains, as so many things do. You climb over it, slowly, carefully. Rust bites into your gloves. As you use the twisted rail for balance, a familiar smell meets you on the other side. Scorched insulation and cheap lubricants. Someone has attempted a repair nearby. Unauthorized. A panel lies open, wires protruding like snap tendons, sealed with scrap tape and binding string. You pause. This isn't sabotage. This is desperation. You make a note of it, but you don't report it. It will be corrected soon, probably by someone like you, in another cycle. Or it won't. You press on. The junction itself is mercifully intact. Old, yes, but unmodified. The panel creaks as you open it, but the relays respond cleanly. The indicator light glows a dull, satisfactory green. You scan your ident slate to log the check. There's a quiet sense of completion in tasks like this. Rare. Finite victories. You savor it for exactly 3 seconds before your slate chimes with a reroute notice. A power dip in an adjacent sector. You've been reassigned to assist. You sigh. Not aloud. Not deeply. Just enough to remind yourself that breath exists. Then you reroute your path and begin walking again. Sector 16 is 3 levels above. You take a lift. This time, an old one. Its interior plastered with faded catechisms and peeling safety diagrams. The floor vibrates underfoot. The lift music is static-toned. A pre-recorded chant, looped indefinitely. You close your eyes for the 30 seconds it takes to rise. The lift halts with a clang. You disembark. Sector 16 is busier. Not with workers, with servitors. Half a dozen sanitation units drift through the halls, releasing bursts of sterilizing mist from their shoulder nozzles. You keep your mask tight. The mist stings slightly at the corners of your eyes. You pass an inspection point. A junior tech adept watches from behind a reinforced window, taking notes. He doesn't look at you. You don't stop. The presence of authority is not a cause for alarm. It's simply another layer of the Hive, observing and recording. You reach the affected node. 2 other workers are already there. You recognize one of them. A woman from a previous shift cycle. Narrow-faced and silent. The other is new, young. He fidgets. His gloves are too clean. The panel is half disassembled. You kneel beside them, nod once, and begin helping without words. The 3 of you work like parts of the same machine, each motion purposeful, each adjustment precise. This is what you're trained for. Not speech, not collaboration, but efficiency. The fix takes 37 minutes. When it's done, the relay blinks a steady white. You all step back. The woman signs the slate. You countersign. The younger one watches, then mirrors the action. The panel is closed. The hallway resumes its hum. The others leave. You linger a moment longer, staring at the panel. Just metal and wires, but also the only place in the Hive you felt briefly necessary today. Then you walk away, your tools heavy in your hands. You don't head straight to your next assignment. Instead, you stop by a decon station tucked behind an auxiliary ventilation duct. It's not your scheduled time, but your mask filters have begun to rasp with every breath, and the last purge cycle left residue clinging to your gloves. The station is unmanned. Just a recessed alcove with a sanitizing mist nozzle, and a worn-picked slate showing outdated instructions. You activate the spray. Cold vapor coats your coveralls in seconds. It stings faintly, the kind of pain that's almost refreshing. You pull your mask slightly away and let a short burst clear the interior, then reseal it quickly. No time for more. You're already behind. As you step out, someone's waiting near the edge of the corridor. A servitor, hunched and flickering. Its Vox grill sputters half a syllable every few seconds. A misfire in its command relay. One of its limbs has been replaced with a rudimentary claw. It doesn't register you. You move around it carefully. The corridor ahead is empty. This is one of the less traveled sectors. Pipeways only, no primary systems. The maintenance requests here are always low priority. But today you've been routed to inspect a pressure junction flagged for inconsistent acoustic feedback, which means someone heard a strange sound. You reach the junction. It's exactly what you expected. A junction point built behind an inspection hatch, surrounded by ancient conduit wrappings and condensation scars. You tap the wall beside it. A low thumb echoes back. Nothing dangerous, just a resonance anomaly, possibly a loose mount. You run your diagnostics anyway, not because it's urgent, because it's routine. Routine is what anchors you. You log the readings. Pressure within range, temperature stable, minor tremor patterns in the surrounding walls, probably seismic reverberations from upper-tier industrial activity. You tag the entry and close the hatch. Your next assignment is across the level, beyond a long ventilation artery. You make your way through it. The vent artery is tight, barely shoulder width, and the floor dips with every third step, warped by heat expansion. Above, fans turn lazily, some barely spinning. You time your movement to avoid the ones that still operate, ducking beneath their rusted blades. The air here tastes of metal and mold. Halfway through, you find an old stencil on the wall. A faded symbol of the Mechanicus. Cog, skull, halo. Someone has scrawled a line of script beneath it in low Gothic. We are the dust between the gears. You pause for a moment. It's not a sanctioned phrase, but it feels true. You press on. The corridor opens into a larger maintenance gallery, where a cluster of empty machine frames lie in neat rows. They were once power regulators, now long decommissioned. Their panels have been stripped. Their cords hang limp like old veins. You walk among them without looking too closely. At the far end, your assigned relay sits in its housing, untouched since last quarter. You begin the routine again. Scan, unseal, inspect, reseal, log. You do it with the precision of someone who no longer thinks about each movement. The hands act. The mind floats. As you finish, your slate beeps once more. Shift update. You check the new route. One more task before rest cycle. One last panel in a sub-access hallway, 2 levels down. You nod to yourself, alone in a room of dead machines, and begin walking again. You descend via a service ladder. The rails are slick, and the paint has peeled in long flakes. Every few meters, your gloves slide just slightly, forcing you to tighten your grip. The rungs creak. Not loudly, but just enough to remind you that nothing here was built for comfort, only function. Only repetition. 2 levels down, you reach the sub-access hall. This place is older, not in design. The blueprints are the same, but in age you can feel. The walls are darker, as if stained by time itself. Dust settles in corners that the automated scrubbers no longer reach. And the silence here is thick, not quiet, still. You walk slowly. There is no rush now, only a final task between you and rest. The relay sits where the schematic promised, embedded in a wall near an old inspection frame. Its surface bears the marks of decades of use. Scratched paint, a missing serial plate, a dent that doesn't affect performance, but was never repaired. You remove your tool roll and kneel. The panel lifts easily. The interior is clean, too clean. Someone serviced this recently, within the last few cycles, at most, but no entry shows in the system logs. You check twice, then a third time. Still nothing. That's unusual, but not unheard of. Maintenance teams are overworked. Records get skipped. You tell yourself that. You even believe it, mostly. Still, you proceed with the check more carefully than usual. Power readings normal. Signal relay within tolerance. Capacitor flux stable, but the diagnostic slate hesitates. A flicker, then a brief red flash. You frown and rerun the scan. This time, the readings are fine. You stare at the panel. Nothing seems wrong. And yet, the air here feels off, slightly heavier. A touch warmer, as if the vent systems don't circulate as they should. The kind of thing you wouldn't notice on most days. But today, after hours of work and walking in silent halls, it catches your attention. You reseal the panel slowly. Stand. Scan your ident code. Then you pause. There's a sound. Not loud. Not mechanical. A low shuffle. Distant, but distinct. You turn your head. Nothing visible. The corridor beyond is empty. You wait for several seconds. Listening. It does not return. You exhale. Long day. Long shift. Echoes bounce strangely down here. You begin walking back toward the lift shaft. Boots scraping lightly on the aging floor panels. Every step sounds louder in this place, as if even the hive itself is holding its breath. Halfway back, you stop. A smear on the wall. Fresh? Grease, maybe. Or oil. You touch it with a gloved hand. It's warm. You leave it behind without another thought, because that's how it works down here. You do the task. You note the anomaly. You keep walking. You don't ask. You don't investigate. You don't get involved. You reach the lift and signal a return ride. Controls take longer to respond, likely a routing delay. You wait in silence, staring at the closed shaft door, listening to the hum of distant machinery through layers of metal. When the lift arrives, it is empty. You step in, press the button for your floor, and close your eyes. You've done your duty, and now, perhaps, you will be allowed to sleep. The lift groans upward. Inside, the dim lighting flickers behind a cracked casing, casting weak shadows across the stained metal walls. A torn inspection notice flutters slightly from a loose seam in the paneling, too faded to read. You lean back against the far wall, boots set squarely apart, hands clasped loosely in front of you. The motion is slow, steady, familiar. There's a soft hum in the shaft, the kind of mechanical resonance that some workers claim they can't sleep without. You're not sure if that's superstition or conditioning. It doesn't matter. The hive hums. Always has. When the doors open, the hallway outside is lined with low visibility strips and emergency path markers. The overhead lights buzz and pulses now. Power saving cycle. Even illumination is a luxury reserved for higher levels. Administrative tiers, military zones, cogitator banks. Down here, lighting is optional. You pass a line of exhausted workers moving in the opposite direction. A shift change. Some nod. Most do not. Their eyes are dim, bodies heavy. The rhythm of the hive allows for only one expression. Forward. You take the long way back to your hab unit. Not for leisure, just to delay the end of the day slightly. As strange as it sounds, your work, routine and harsh as it is, brings a kind of structure, an identity. Without it, you are only a number in a room, lying still in darkness. You pass a reclaimer pit where two servitors are unloading scrap from a bent conveyor belt. Nada looks up as you walk past. You nod out of habit. The gesture is meaningless. The servitors are not programmed for acknowledgement. A speaker overhead chirps static, then cycles through a short catechism in binary. The voice is mechanical, devotional, and without emotion. The machine does not tire. The machine does not hunger. Be like the machine. You've heard it 1,000 times. You will hear it 1,000 more. At the next intersection, a sanitation drone trundles by, misting the floor with something vaguely citrus-scented. A single droplet splashes your boot. It evaporates within seconds. You do not stop walking. Finally, you reach your block. The security checkpoint is unstaffed. No guards. No pick scan required. Just a cracked keypad and a wheezing motion sensor. You wave your ident slate near the receiver. It takes 3 tries to register. A dull buzz. Then the door unlocks. You descend 2 flights to reach your level. The stairs are narrow, and a spill of dried adhesive from some old repair job makes the footing uneven. A caution sign has been left nearby, but no one's bothered to stand it upright. You reach your door. Unit 19K. Block 7. The locking mechanism sticks, as always. You apply just the right pressure. Heel forward, body angled. And the latch gives way. Inside, the hab unit is just as you left it. Small. Clean. By Hive standards. A cot, a fold-down shelf, a storage crate, and a personal wash station. A devotional decal has peeled halfway off the far wall. The air smells faintly of rust and warm plastic. You remove your boots first, then the gloves, then the mask. You place each item with mechanical precision in the designated recess beside the wash unit. The rituals matter. They give shape to the void. You splash water on your face. It's tepid and mineral-rich. No soap today. You're out of your rationed allotment. You'll need to request more. And wait. As always. You sit on the edge of the cot and exhale. The silence presses inward. Not complete silence, of course. There is always the background hum, but it's quieter now. A stillness that wraps around your thoughts like old insulation. You lie back, stare at the ceiling, close your eyes, and wait for rest. You do not fall asleep immediately. Sleep doesn't come quickly in the Hive, not even after long shifts. There's always a layer of noise beneath the stillness. Vents shifting, pipes groaning, distant echoes of footsteps from neighboring units. And beneath that, the hum, low and constant. A mechanical lullaby without beginning or end. You stare at the ceiling until it fades into the blur behind your eyelids. Your body aches. Not sharply, just that steady, dull exhaustion that wraps around your limbs like warm lead. It's the kind of tired that doesn't feel temporary. The kind you suspect you were born with. You roll onto your side. The mattress sags inward slightly. You've folded your coveralls to use as a pillow, and they still carry the scent of dust and cleaning solvent. Not pleasant, but familiar. Somewhere nearby, someone shifts in their cot. You hear it. A creak, a sigh, then stillness. The walls are thin here, thinner than they should be. You've never seen your neighbor's face, but you know the rhythms of their day. In the Hive, that's as close to friendship as most get. You drift in and out, not quite sleeping, not quite waking. Thoughts pass like trains through a fog. Fragments of work assignments, snatches of catechisms, the shape of a diagnostic screen. For a brief moment, you think of something soft. A memory, maybe. A sky, once, with color in it. But it fades before you can hold it. A chime wakes you. Soft. Gentle. It's not the work alarm. Not yet. Just a system pulse, reminding you that rest period is halfway through. You lie still. Moving would break the illusion of sleep, and there's no reason to do that yet. You count your breaths. You try not to think about the next shift, but it hovers there, at the edge of everything, waiting, as certain as gravity, as relentless as rust. You hear the water reclamation unit cycle once, deep in the wall. Pipes shift. Air hisses. Another sound. Brief. Sharp. like a door closing 2 levels above. The Hive is never silent. It simply rearranges its sounds. You sit up, eventually. Not because you're rested, but because stillness becomes uncomfortable in time. You sip the last of your water bowl. Stale. Slightly bitter. You stare at the far wall and trace the lines in the cracked decal with your eyes. It's a stylized cog, a half-faded skull. Words once below it, too worn to read. You remember them anyway. To work is to serve. To serve is to endure. You swing your legs over the edge of the cot. The day hasn't started yet, but you're already inside it. There is no official start to your day. Not really. Oh, no sunrise, no fresh air, no bird song or clatter of carts in the street. Just the dim shift horn humming somewhere far above your level. The vibrations reaching your bones before your ears. A soft, sustained tone. More of a pressure than a sound. You respond automatically. Rise. Sit. Nishrin? Breathe. Dress. Your coveralls are still damp in places. They always are. There's no proper place for them to dry. No ventilation in your hab cell beyond the slow, wheezing intake fan. You tug the cloth into place and fasten the seals. Your mask comes next. Filter. Check. Eye strip wiped. You open the crate at the foot of your cot. Inside, tools, neatly arranged. You never rearranged them. They simply formed into this order, over time. Spanner, scraper, slate, diagnostic wand, fuse binder, grease cloth, all worn, all yours. Technically property of the Mechanicus, of course, but functionally, yours. You pocket the slate, sling the belt over your shoulder, and step toward the door. It doesn't open. Not at first. You knock. Not loudly. Once, then twice. The lock whines, then it releases. You step into the hallway. Already others are moving. Boots shuffle. No one talks. There is a rhythm to the flow. Slow, methodical, as if the hallway is a conveyor belt, and every body a component. You fall into step naturally. At the end of the hall, you pass the nutrient station. One dispenser is broken, a smear of paste hardened on the wall beside it. The other two function. You collect your ration from the second unit. A tube of protein slurry, and a plastic cup of lukewarm recap. You eat standing. There are no chairs here, no tables, just narrow ledges where workers lean against the wall while swallowing mouthfuls of bitter paste. No one complains. What would be the point? The meal finishes quickly. You drop the empty cup into the bin and move on. Down 2 flights, past a line of servitors waiting for recalibration, past a pick screen showing hive temperature fluctuations, irrelevant data for most. Past a vent where a child once dropped a wrench, long ago, and now no one remembers who. You reach the checkpoint, a low wall, a bored clock behind a flickering cogitator. You hold out your slate. He scans it without looking up. His fingers are stained with ink and oils. His lips move silently, mouthing some inner litany. You are waved through. The work tier awaits. Your boots strike metal. The air thickens. Lights grow harsher. The drone of the hive sharpens into something more precise. And yet, none of it feels new. Because this is the shape of your life. This is your first breath and your final one. This is the hum beneath your dreams. This is the start of another day. You receive your assignment at the operations board. It's not a briefing. There's no voice, no explanation, no human interaction. Just a flicker on the screen above the queue. A string of numbers. A color-coded corridor route. and a time limit in faint yellow text. It's not a suggestion. It's not guidance. It's your day. You memorize the coordinates, as you always do. You don't write them down. There's no need. The route is already forming in your mind. A lattice of corridors, ductways, narrow access halls, and silent lifts. You've walked them before. You'll walk them again. The corridor ahead smells faintly of chemical degreaser. That means the sanitation servitors passed through within the last 2 hours. You're grateful. The mist burns the eyes, but it kills the rust mold. And that buys you time. An extra week, maybe. Before the floor panels start to bubble again. You pass a worker ahead of you. Older. Back slightly bowed. Moving slow. His mask is older than yours. The eye lens clouded with age. He's not your concern. But you nod anyway. He doesn't return the gesture. At junction K12, you stop to inspect a circuit housing. It's not on your list, but something about the panel catches your eye. A strip of tape over one of the bolts. That's not standard. Not authorized. You lift the tape, revealing a scratch. Deliberate, maybe, or accidental. Impossible to tell. You record it with your slate, not because you expect follow-up, but because observation is part of duty. You reseal the panel and continue. The hallway narrows into a low-pressure loop where ventilation is weaker. Your breath warms the inside of your mask, and a slow sheen of sweat begins to form beneath your collar. You don't adjust. You don't wipe it away. To break seal would be worse. You find the task node, 2 levels down. An aging energy coupler half hidden behind stacked conduit. The floor creaks when you step onto it. Not from weight, from age. You kneel and unseal the panel. The coupler hisses, not dangerously, but enough to warn you that heat levels are higher than normal. You scan the thermal readings. Slightly above tolerance. Not high enough for a shutdown, but high enough to watch. You adjust 2 regulators. Swap a pressure cap. D. You take your time, not because you're slow, but because this is your time. Each movement is a form of ownership. A ritual of survival. In the Hive, time is not your own, but motion that you can claim. Once the panel is stable, you log the entry. Status. Acceptable. Monitored. You reseal it. Rise. Don't hand. And begin walking again. This is your rhythm. This is your song. This is the Hive. And you, a single note in its endless drone. The next task takes you into the underguts. That's not an official designation, just the word passed between workers. Low and careful. The underguts aren't on most route maps. They aren't forbidden. Exactly. Just avoided. Too deep for most. Too forgotten. You follow a service stairwell down 14 flights. Each level grows darker. Fewer lights. More exposed cable. You pass through zones where no scrubbers run, where the dust lies thick in the corners like unmoving fog. Even the servitors hesitate in these corridors. Their footsteps ring slower here, as if the metal itself resists their presence. You reach the bulkhead. It's rust-stained, dented, unmarked. A manual lever unlocks it. The metal shrieks. You wince, just slightly, and step through. Inside, the temperature drops. The air feels wrong. Stale. Too still. This far down, the circulation systems are ancient, patched, or absent. Every breath filters slower. Every motion echoes longer. You activate your shoulder lamp. A cone of pale yellow in the dark. The walls are scored with claw marks. You don't ask why. Probably rats. Probably. You walk carefully. The floor here isn't flat. Panels warp upward, some cracked open to expose ancient wiring. You step over each with practiced caution. Your slate beeps. Proximity alert. You've reached the assigned conduit block. You crouch. Scan. It's colder here. Not just from the air. The machinery itself feels colder. As if the systems in this part of the Hive run slower, quieter, more ancient than those above. You've heard rumors that some parts of the city run on power from forgotten wars. Old reactors. Alien salvage trunda. Alien salvage. You don't ask. You check the conduit. Its seal is cracked. A small leak. Almost invisible. You tighten it. Not a full repair. Just enough to hold until a specialist team arrives. If they ever do. You mark the tag with a caution stripe. The paint smells faintly of vinegar and metal. You rise. Stretch your shoulders. The walls seem closer now. You log the repair and begin retracing your step. But the corridor doesn't look the same. You hesitate. A moment only. Then you walk anyway. Because that's the rule down here. You don't trust the signs. You don't ask the questions. You move until you find a ladder or a lift or a shaft that leads upward. Eventually, you do. A thin stairwell of oxidized mesh. You climb. Each step creaks. Each breath thickens. And at the top, light, flickering, weak, dot, but light. You don't look back. You log your time. You move on to the next task, because the day is still far from over. You emerge from the underguts with dust on your shoulders. It clings to your coveralls in fine gray powder, sinks into your gloves, and dulls the edge of your mask lens. You brush off what you can. The rest will remain. A quiet badge of where you've been. No one will ask about it. No one ever does. You check your slate. 2 more assignments remain in the shift. One is a routine inspection in a coolant corridor. The other is a valve reset in an intake loop. You choose the intake loop first. Longer walk, but quieter. Fewer bodies, fewer chances for interruption. The corridor to the intake station winds like a vein through the lower spine of the Habspine sector. Red conduit lines trace the walls like arteries. The lights flicker not from fault, but design. Pulsing with the rhythm of the flow. You pass a Vox terminal crackling faintly with static. No message, just the hum of a forgotten channel. Someone used to man it. You think, once. You find the intake valve behind a bolted gate. It opens with effort. The hinges warped by heat and time. Metal smells of damp brass and synthetic oil. You duck beneath a low pipe and crouch by the panel. Inside, it's simple work. The kind you don't need a slate to remember. Turn the dial. Bleed the line. Monitor the pressure gauge until it steadies. You count the clicks as you turn. 16. Always 16. You hold your hand against the pipe until the warmth fades slightly. That's how you know it's balanced. You reseal the panel, tag it, and step back. Then you sit. Just for a moment. Not because you're tired, though you are, but because this space, for all its decay, offers something rare in the Hive. Solitude. No orders, no movement. No judgment, just a tangle of machines older than you'll ever be, breathing their dry, mechanical breath. You sit there longer than you should, long enough for your slate to blink. A reminder, time to move. You stand, stretch the stiffness from your back, and continue the walk to your final task. Each step feels heavier now, not from fatigue, but from the quiet you're leaving behind. At the last junction, you pass another worker. Her mask is cracked. Her eye strip flickers. She doesn't speak, just nods. You return it. And for a heartbeat, you feel almost human again. Then the moment passes. The corridor swallows you both, and the hive continues to hum. The final task is routine. That's what the slate says. Routine. Code T112. Fan housing stabilization. My node. Dot 2. Non-critical. But you still feel the tension in your shoulders as you approach the zone. Because in the hive, routine doesn't mean safe. It means no one's checked it in 3 cycles and nothing's exploded. Yet, the hallway bends sharply before the fan housing. Someone's left a maintenance crate sitting in the corner, half open, with tools scattered like shed teeth. You step around it. A sign on the bulkhead reads, "Authorized personnel only." The paint is peeling. The door opens anyway. Inside, the fan hums. Loud. A deep dot. A low roar that presses against your chest more than your ears. It spins behind a mesh grate 10 meters across, its blades stained with age, rimmed with dust. You feel the airflow tug gently at your mask seals. You kneel near the stabilizer shaft. A bracket has come loose, and one of the vibration dampeners is cracked. Nothing urgent. But if it fails, the tremors will spread through the ducting and rattle the entire tier. Maybe knock something loose. Maybe someone. You unhook your toolkit and begin. The work is careful, not delicate. Nothing in the hive is but precise. Bracing the shaft, swapping the dampener, tightening the bolts with steady torque. It's not just a job, it's a pattern, a kind of meditation. One of the few things in this life you can control. When you finish, you pause. Let your gloved fingers rest on the newly secured bracket. Just for a moment, it hums beneath your hand, not dangerously, just alive. The fan will never stop spinning. Not in your lifetime. Not in the lifetime of your children if you had any. It will outlive you. It already has. You step back and seal the hatch. The hallway seems quieter now, even with the fan still roaring. Your shift clock blinks. Only 10 minutes left. Not enough for another job. Just enough to return. The walk back takes you past a pick slate playing devotional hymns. The screen is cracked. The sound is tinny. But the image still shows. A golden figure. Faceless, haloed in flame. The God Emperor. Eternal. Watching. You nod once, out of habit. Not because you believe, but because everyone watches in the hive. Even the walls. You reach the checkpoint gate. The same bored clerk is still there, head down, fingers flicking through a datasheet. He doesn't look up. You scan your slate. The gate clicks open. You step through and breathe. Not relief, not pride, just rhythm. This is the pattern. The long inhale of survival, the exhale of endurance. The shift is over, but the hive never sleeps, and neither do you. Not really. Not all the way. The lift hums as it rises. Its interior smells of old metal, ozone, and something faintly biological. Sweat and oil, aged together. You lean back against the wall, arms crossed loosely, boots planted. Not because you're at ease, but because there's nowhere else to put yourself. Each level it passes is marked by a dull click. You count them. Not because you need to, but because it helps. 14, 15, 16, 17. The lift halts. The door slides open with a soft shudder, and the hallway beyond looks exactly the same as it did this morning. Dim, gray, unremarkable. You pass the same cracked floor tile, the same scorched wall conduit, the same flickering ceiling lumen that's never been replaced. Your door is third from the end. You press your code into the panel. It accepts it on the second try. The door hisses open. Your hab cell greets you with silence. The thought, the vent, the crate, the blank wall where once long ago a pick tile hung before it was broken. You step inside and seal the door behind you. You don't turn on the lumen. You don't need to. The glow from the hallway is enough. You remove your mask slowly, wipe the lenses, set it on the crate, then your belt, your tools, your gloves, everything in order, placed where it belongs. You sit, not on the cot at first, just on the floor. Legs stretched, back against the wall. You let your eyes adjust to the dark. You listen to the vent hum. You breathe. Eventually you lie down, not because you're ready for sleep, but because lying down is the only thing left to do. You stare up at the ceiling, and the cracks you know by memory. There's one shaped like a hook, one like a boot, one like nothing at all. You feel your pulse in your fingertips. You feel your knees ache. You feel your eyes begin to close, not sharply, but slowly, like the end of a machine cycle winding down after long use. This is not peace, but it is rest. And in the hive, that is enough. The hum continues. Outside your cell, the fans spin, the servitors shuffle, the walls throb with industry and breath and time. Somewhere far above, someone begins a shift. Somewhere far below, someone ends one. And in this thin slice between the two, you sleep. The hive will be waiting when you wake. It always is.